meeting. So let me record this. Yeah, fab, is recorded. So the first session, which is this session, is going to be an introduction to Scrum. So it's going to be about understanding the basics of Scrum, understanding the methodology itself, how it's applied, who are the actors in the particular methodology, what are they responsible for, all the different actors as well. What's the main objective of Scrum as well? Why is Scrum a preferred method? Why is Agile Scrum, a preferred method? Why is Scrum also being adopted in a lot of companies right now? And also, why is Scrum preferred to any other development model for software development? Great. So that's what we're going to cover. And then at the end of this particular session, we are going to have a little quiz at the end of the session as well. So get ready for that, guys. At the end of every session I'm going to be doing moving forward, we're going to be having quizzes just to make sure that we all validate our understanding and also to validate what we've gathered in the last 1 hour / hour and 15 minutes. Because let's remember that this is not only an hour and 30 minutes of my time being dedicated to this, it's also an hour and 30 minutes of roughly about 35 people on the call's time. So it's precious. All right. So we're going to do that, and then hopefully at the end of the session, you guys will be able to walk away with a good understanding of the Scrum methodology. So let's talk about what's on my screen now. So as we all know, project management.
Sorry, Sage, but I can't see your screen.
Oh, apologies. Sorry, guys. Can you see it now?
No.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, sorry, guys. Apologies. Okay. So, before I crack on, the quiz at the end of the session, I would like everybody to be involved in it as well. It's going to be fun because the questions are put in such a way that it will really get you to think. And then once you're ready with your answer, you can put your answer into the chat box. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make sure that the chat box is functional. So, yeah, I can see. Oh, Victesha, you said, can I make you presenter? All right. Can you guys confirm that you can see what I wrote there? Hi, everyone. Hiya. Esther is confirmed. Okay. All right. Cool. Fabulous. All right. Cheers for that. Okay. Oh yeah, everybody's replying. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Super. All right. So let's crack on in. So in project management, there's two main methodologies, right? There's the Agile methodology and there's the waterfall methodology. I believe Adeshola has taken you through both of them, and also I believe that you are working with the Wagile methodology. So that's the waterfall as well as the Agile methodology as well. So in different stages, you are applying waterfall, and in some other stage, I believe one stage, you will be applying the Agile Scrum methodology. Agile Scrum methodology is usually applied in the development stage. That's the build stage. That's where you're actually building the products that you are looking to ship. So this here is just a high level framework of the Wagile methodology. So of course you'll be obtaining your mandate, you'll be setting up your project governance, stakeholder analysis, and your communication plans. You'll be setting up your project management strategies, which is, would you be using waterfall, would you be using Agile, or would you be using both of them, and when and how would you be applying these methodologies? Setting up your project reporting and control documents, of course. Then moving on to your project plan, your resource management, and budgeting. Then your implement plan. Now, this implement plan here is where the Agile methodology is usually applied. You can also apply it in these other stages, in the previous stages. But however, is much more effective and much more relevant in this particular stage. And of course, your deploy and close. So I thought I'll just start with this to give us a good understanding. Make sure we're all on the same page. Yep. Okay. So let's go into agile software development. So agile software development is, of course, can be defined as a process of developing softwares in an incremental way. So that means that you would not be looking at developing the product from start to finish before you then deploy. You will be looking at developing the product incrementally. So feature by feature, product by product. What do I mean by that? I mean, in very simple terms, let's think about an app that everybody uses. So an app that everybody uses is Instagram. So let's pick Instagram. So Instagram, one particular feature on there is, of course, login. Yeah, so I want to be able to log in. Another feature there will be I want to be able to post videos. I want to be able to post pictures. I want to be able to view other people's pictures. You know, all of those are different kind of features. Those features are then built incrementally, one after the other, following the full software development cycle. So there's different kind of methodologies that software developers and that projects that companies use to develop their softwares. One of them is Scrum, the other one is DSDM, Adaptive Software Development, Crystal, Feature-Driven Development, Pragmatic Development, Lean Development, Extreme Programming. The very popular ones are your Scrum, DSDM, and Extreme Programming. But the most popular one is Scrum, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So, Scrum. What's the meaning of Scrum? So I've sort of broken it down here in as simple language as possible, to be honest. I will still explain. So Scrum is an iterative and incremental agile software development framework for managing product development. So iterative meaning it is done in sprints. I'll come back to sprints in a minute, but iterative meaning it is done in different chunks. So I want to make sure that I use terminologies that everybody understands, and then I will link those terminologies that I'm using to the real official terminologies themselves. So iterative is like little chunks, so you'll be doing it in little bits of development. Yes, I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll answer all the questions that are in the chat as well. So keep putting your questions in the chat, please. If you got any questions, I'll come back to that. So Scrum is an iterative and incremental agile software development framework. Why that is why Scrum is preferred by a lot of companies is because most times at the start of a project, the product owner usually knows what they want. They usually know what they want. However, they don't understand what they want in details. That is why previously, from research, waterfall being applied to a software development cycle, at the end of that particular waterfall cycle, the product owner is usually not happy with that particular product that has been developed. That is because either some particular features were missed, or it didn't meet the acceptance criteria, or it just didn't, the design of it, he was just not happy with the design of it. Now, nothing can be done about fixing that until the end of that particular development cycle. However, the full product has been developed. The full product has been built. So having to fix something in that product, having to fix something very, very small in that product might then cause what? It might then cause a knock-on effect on having to actually fix a lot of other things that might be impacted as a result of fixing just one thing. Now, don't take away the fact that waterfall methodology is also relevant in some particular project environments. So project environments like construction. is very, very waterfall based. That is because the concrete that they are sort of buying doesn't change. The design of the building, the architectural design of the building doesn't really change. It's been designed based on all the mitigating factors put into consideration, so that doesn't change. Very, very straightforward process. Building in construction, building a house, waterfall usually is used in that particular scenario. Another scenario also that you can sort of apply waterfall in is the production of cars is another very, very good one. The cars have already been designed. All the parts of the cars have also already been designed. So all you have to do is just go out there and build it. All right. However, when it comes to software, when it comes to things like websites, apps, integrated systems, CRMs, customer relationship management systems, all those kind of systems, they are very, very user focused. Why? Is because our user needs keep changing. What the users wanted last year is different from what the users wanted this year. It's very different. What the users wanted yesterday, in fact, if you really do your research in depth, you would find out that it is different from what your users might want today. So can you imagine starting to build a software in January? It takes maybe about 6 months to build that particular software. At the end of building that particular software, let's imagine an app. At the end of actually building that app, and then you then launch the app, you then find out that actually the users don't have those needs anymore. The users' needs have changed. So that 6 months that you've dedicated to that particular project is more or less gone in as a waste. Whereas with Scrum, you could use a month to build the login feature and the basic features. Like, okay, you know what, actually, let me use a particular project that I worked on right here. So the bank I used to work with before, I was involved in the build of the mobile app. So the build of the mobile app, the first bits that were built was, of course, login feature, of course, passwords, of course, the security features, and of course, just the basic view of your account. Now, for those of you who downloaded the apps at the initial stage where the banks initially launched them, you'll find out that all you could really do is just view your account, view your statements, and that was about it. Even transfers were not on there when they first launched the app. However, as time went by, transfers were then built and integrated into the app. As time went by, the ability to be able to log in to your online banking using the app was then built in, and so on and so forth. So I just want to make sure that you guys sort of understand the production cycle and sort of how it works in very, very simplistic terms. Okay, so as it says here, it's defined as a flexible, holistic product development strategy where the development team works as a unit. Now, in Scrum also, working as a unit is the foundation of a successful Scrum team. Collaboration is the ultimate, working as a Scrum team. The word Scrum comes from, you guys probably know, the word Scrum comes from rugby, and that's where the both teams sort of hold each other's necks. They put their arms over each other's necks, bend down, and then run into each other. That is a scrum. Now, if that team, if they're not well organized, if they're not holding each other as they should hold each other, if they don't move in unison towards the other team, that other team is surely going to run them over. No doubt about it. So that was sort of the basis of the name. That's where this name Scrum sort of came from. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have sort of read what's on my screen. So I'm gonna move on to the next bit. Before I move on to the next bit, any questions on this Scrum meaning so far? Okay. So then there are no questions. Thank you, Esther. There are no questions. So that's either I'm doing a good job, yeah, all right, or I am totally confusing all of you. Yeah. So,
Sorry, Sage.
yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wondered if you could clarify what you meant by challenging assumptions of the traditional approach.
Yes, that's fantastic. So, what happens in that's a very good question actually. What happens in waterfall, which is the traditional approach, right? I'll use that as an example. It is very rigid. Waterfall methodology is very rigid and very astute. It's a matter of, oh, when you finish this, you hand over to this team, and when you have finished that, you hand over to this team, and when you finish that, you hand over to them, and that's it. You build it like that. You deliver what we've asked you to build. Don't ask any questions. We don't want your inputs. We don't want no suggestions. We just want what we've told you to do. That's waterfall. The difference in Scrum is that the teams are empowered. They are very much empowered, not only to make better suggestions to the product owner, but also to make decisions as well where they feel that it is within scope, it is within the requirements of the product owner. Now, also, the teams are empowered to challenge each other. And I'll come back to that in Scrum, in this, in how the Scrum meetings are actually run, which is part of the session today. You can challenge each other, asking each other what you've done the day before, or you can challenge each other based on, okay, you know, oh, so you've designed this, so the developer can challenge the UX designer to better understand what the UX designer is trying to communicate, or actually to give suggestions on a better way to design that particular product. Now, let's remember that when you're working in a Scrum environment, the teams are working together. So you have your designers working in the team, you have your UX designers, you have your testers, you have your developers, you have your UI designers, you have your BAs, you have your service designers, you have your content designers as well. You have all these people all working together, right? Now, as a developer, I could have worked with different content designers and UX designers in my previous companies or previous roles, you know, and I might have picked up some particular, you know, best practices or hints and tips, yeah, that when I move on to the next Scrum team, yeah, I realize that the designer in there is not aware about these best practices or hints and tips. That way, I can challenge the designer or whoever else to say, look, you know, we could do it differently. We could do it this way. We could do it that way. In Waterfall, you can't do that. With Waterfall, you've been told what to do. You can do it within the time frame and within the budget. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
It does. Right, cool. Okay. All right. So I'll sort of move on to the next bit. All right. Now this is a brief manifesto of. Oh, guys, sorry, somebody is not muted. Can you mute yourselves, please, guys, if you don't mind? Thank you. Cheers. All right. So manifesto for agile software development. So agile software development. Scrum is on the left. So Scrum talks about individuals and interactions over processes and tools, which is what I just sort of spoke about. I touched on that just now when I answered the question. Working software as well. So the agile software development is more focused on a working software rather than focusing on comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiations. So customer collaborations, like when you do your user research, when you do your user testing, when you do your user acceptance criteria, and also that's from a user perspective when we talk about customer collaboration. We can also talk about customer collaboration when it comes to the stakeholders that you're dealing with as well. So your product owners, and all the other colleagues in that particular company that you will have to be working with. They have a responsibility in an agile environment. They all have a responsibility to collaborate together with the Scrum team. Rather than focusing on contract negotiations and what's in the contract, and if the contract is not met, what's going to happen, consequences. No, that's very waterfallish. Customer collaboration is encouraged more. Responding to change as well is encouraged in an agile environment. I'm sure all of you will probably know that in an agile environment, change is one of the most consistent things that happens. So you need to be really ready for that. And why change happens quite often is because, like I said before, user requirements, the user requirements change often. User needs change often. And companies these days are all focused on adapting their services and adapting their product to meet customers' needs. That's what it's about, rather than following a plan. Now, I must stress, guys, in the council that I'm working in at the moment, when I first got in there, yes, they were talking about all these on the left. They were really focused on it. However, what I noticed started to happen was they started to use the fact that they were focusing on these as an excuse not to complete all the ones on the right. So, yes, we do value these on the left over the ones on the right. However, that doesn't say that the ones on the right hold no value whatsoever. The ones on the right are extremely valuable and extremely relevant in every single project that you're working on. So in every single project you must have processes and tools. You must have comprehensive documentation. You must have your contract negotiations, and you must have a project plan that you're following. But we want to encourage these more, because these ones on the left here are the foundation to a successful agile software development. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, there we go. So what is Scrum is not a waterfall. I'm sure you guys will identify this as a waterfallish kind of process. So that's where you gather your requirements, you go into your design. Then once you finish designing the full product, then you then go into your code, integration, test, and deploy. And then once you deployed it, your product owner will then come and say, actually, our users are saying something different now. So guess what? We have to change the whole thing. Hello. Where do we start? That's not what we want. We want to be iterative. We want to be flexible. And we want to respond to continuous change as well. So let's take a look at this diagram. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this diagram quickly. In the next slides that are coming up, they go into a bit more details for every single section here. So your product backlog, I'm going to break that down. Your sprint backlog, I'm going to break that down. Your sprints as well, your daily Scrum meetings, I'm going to break that down. And your retrospective meetings, where is that? Yes, your sprint retrospective meetings, your sprint review meetings over here. We'll talk about that in more details. But let's talk about this diagram here, this flow here quickly, and then we'll move on. So what happens here? Your product owner has a vision. If you guys can just follow my mouse, your product owner here has a vision and a light bulb moment. That's not usually what happens, but yeah. For this illustration, that's what's happened. That then goes into so the product owner then communicates with the project team. Project team then gather their requirements. They go through their requirement analysis and then develop. And then from that requirement analysis, they then develop a product backlog. I'm going to go into product backlogs later in the session, and I'll show you guys examples of product backlogs as well. So product backlogs is a combination of product items that the product owner requires to be built. Product backlog are usually classified into either features or user stories. Now, for all of us on the call, hopefully we will all be conversant with, we will know what user stories are. If not, I will show you later. I'll show you examples of that later. So the product backlog is usually user stories. Now, what happens is, once that product backlog has been put together, the product backlog is then refined and then is then what prioritized as well. So the product backlog is prioritized according to Moscow. I'm sure we all know Moscow and that particular methodology. Now, once you've Moscowed the backlog, you then go into sprint planning. Now, your sprint planning meeting is what happens in between here, in between your product backlog and your sprint backlog. You hold a sprint planning meeting. That sprint planning meeting is what will then establish which particular features from the product backlog that you will be taking into that particular sprint. There's a lot of things to put into consideration when making those decisions. Things that you have to put into consideration are based on priority order, technical priority order, what comes first. So, of course, going back to my example of the mobile banking app, you will not be looking at developing, let's say, the ability to upload to download your bank statements from the app. You will not be looking at developing that particular feature until you've developed the login feature, until you've developed what the login page is going to look like, So in technical priority, you have to also prioritize it based on technicalities. In addition to that, you also have to, the product owner will also choose what he or she feels is important to be prioritized based on the vision that he has and also based on business and user needs. Because sometimes the business might need you to develop the transfer function before you develop anything else, because a lot of customers want to do transfers on the app, and the feedback they've been getting from customers is that the biggest feedback they're getting from customers is that they want the ability to transfer money on the app. So you've got to prioritize that straight away. So that sprint planning meeting happens in between the product backlog and the sprint backlog. So that's one thing to put into consideration, of course, the priority order. So when prioritizing as well, another thing you have to put into consideration as well is story points. So for each particular task, okay, all right. Let's leave story points for now. I'll come back to that. For each particular product, so let's take one box for example. That particular box could be, as a user, I want to log in so that I can check my balance. Yep. Now, that particular user story or product will move into the sprint backlog. When it moves into the sprint backlog, the team will then break that particular user story or product, will break it down into tasks. Now, to be able to log in...
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Why is it called backlog?
It's called a backlog. It's a name that is given to the list of user stories or the list of product items. It's a backlog because you always come back to it.
Okay.
It
kind of confuses me because you're talking about tasks and he's talking about backlog. So that's all right. We can move ahead.
Yes, I'll explain that. So the product backlog does not contain any tasks. So remember, the product backlog only contains product items or user stories. Yeah, that's over here.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool.
So when it moves into Yeah, it's very important to ask, so that we're all on the same page. So when it moves into the sprint backlog, right? When it moves into the sprint backlog, that is where that particular product or user story, will then be broken down into achievable tasks.
Okay.
So those tasks could be, okay, the developer could then come and say, okay, you know what, guys? So this is all held. This is all discussed in the sprint planning meeting. So I'm talking about the sprint planning meeting here. So in that sprint planning meeting, the developer in the sprint planning meeting might say, okay, guys, you know what? To be able to build this particular, user story, I want to log in so that I can view my balances. We will have to code in this particular way, right? Or we will have to develop a particular function first before we can even code the login. So straight away, you create a task to say, I'm just saying, for example, you create a task to say, develop code function, code login, initial login functions there. And then you can, the tester can then say, oh, actually, to be able to test this particular login feature, we will need a particular environment, and in that testing environment, we have not included a particular functionality to be able to test this particular kind of feature. So what we're going to have to do is we will have to build that functionality in that test environment to be able to test the product when it's ready. Fantastic. We'll add that onto the task as well. So everybody gets together to then talk about what they need to do to achieve that particular user story that has been picked from the product backlog. Okay. I hope I answered the question, yeah?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, thanks.
All right. So once the team have then established tasks, they then backlog the tasks as well. Yeah, in the sprint backlog. The backlog tasks will be in the sprint backlog anyway. It's more or less the same thing. So once you backlog those tasks, you then start to work on those tasks in that particular sprint. Sprints are usually between 2 to 4 weeks, right? Fantastic. Now let me come back to this. Let me come back to the sprint backlog very, very quickly as well. When in the sprint planning meeting, when you're talking about when the product has been broken into tasks. Oh, sorry, there's still somebody that hasn't been muted. So I'm just going to mute the person. Apologies, guys. Mute the person. All right. Fantastic. So if you think you've been muted and you would want to be unmuted, please just send me a message in the chat box. So in that sprint planning meeting, you can see where my mouse is, yeah? It's right in between the product backlog and the sprint backlog. That's where that sprint planning meeting happens. In that particular sprint planning meeting also, once the team have then said, okay, guess what? That particular user story of I want to be able to log in so that I can view my balances. Yeah. Once that user story from the product backlog has been broken down into tasks that the team would need to carry out to be able to achieve that login functionality, or should we call it a login product? Yeah. Once they've broken down into it down into tasks, what then happens after that is the team would then need to attach story points to it. Yeah. So story points is quite a straightforward process. Again, I wouldn't want to cover story points in too much details on this call. I'll cover it off in the upcoming sessions. But story points is where the team will then agree that okay, this particular task is going to be a story point of 1. It could be a story point of 3. It could be a story point of 5, 8, and 15. That's if you're using the Fibonacci series. If you're using the Fibonacci series, you can also use t-shirt sizes. You can use small, medium, large. Yeah. whichever your team is more comfortable with. But like I said, you guys don't worry. I'll go through velocity and story points in more details later. So once the team have then established, okay, all right, you know what, this task is we are attaching a story point of this to this task, is a story point of this to this task, a story point of this to this task. The total story point will then be your sprint velocity. Again, don't worry, I'll cover that later. Yeah, that would then be your sprint velocity. So your sprint velocity is what would then be used to measure the team's efficiency in delivering product items or / user stories. Come back to that in a minute. So once that's been done, you then go into your sprint. Your sprint, of course, is where you then hold your daily scrum meetings. Your daily scrum meetings is your stand-ups for 15 minutes, is written here. For 15 minutes, you know, everybody in that particular team will stand up for 15 minutes and talk about what they've done since the last scrum meeting, what they're going to be working on before the next scrum meeting, and also any impediments or any blockers that they are facing at that moment in time that is stopping them that they think is going to stop them from achieving the completion of the tasks that they've been assigned in that sprint. So once you've held your daily scrum meetings, you know, at the end of the sprint, be it 2 weeks, be it 3 weeks, be it 4 weeks, depending on the experience of the team. Most experienced teams usually go for 4 weeks. Less experienced teams go for less. At the end of that particular sprint, you then hold your sprint retrospective meeting. So that's where you talk about what went well during the last sprint. You know, did we work very well together? Did we collaborate very well together? Did we manage our risk effectively? You know, could we have coded differently? You know, all these kind of things will be put into consideration. And then after the sprint retrospective meeting, you then hold your sprint review meeting. Your sprint review meeting is where the product owner is then demonstrated. The product owner is shown the end product of that particular sprint. So, like I said before, we were working on what? We were working on the login. So I want to be able to log in to view my balance. So the product owner will then be shown what that login functionality looks like, how it works, you know, and the fantastic work that the team have done. That all happens in a sprint review meeting. Also, velocity is then reviewed as well, and something called a backlog refinement meeting is also then held, right? So I'll come back to the backlog refinement meeting, but in very simple terms, the backlog refinement meeting is I've got somebody's video up, so if you just want to take off your video, please. Daniel, I think that's you. You can take off your video, please, Daniel. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. So
can I ask one more question, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's say you are halfway through the development of your product, and the person that gave you a task actually says, okay, actually, I need to see this thing as part of the product you're already developing. How do you accommodate that?
So are you talking about...
It brings some kind of functionality, yes. So you're developing your product through this process, and maybe you're somewhere around the sprint where you're actually in the process of trying to get things done, and the person says, okay, actually, I need to add this element of the product in the product you're already developing. How do you accommodate that in this kind of framework?
Usually you'll have to do an impact assessment on that. Yeah, you have to do an impact assessment before you even go into your change control. Yeah, because in sprint, yeah, we as project managers, scrum masters, we try to minimize as much disruption to the team as possible. That's one of your responsibilities as a scrum master. That's one of your biggest responsibilities as a scrum master, is to resolve blockers, is to resolve impediments and also to protect the team from any external factors or any external issues that can come in and disrupt the flow of the team. But however, that being said, once the product owner comes and says, oh, you know what, we have this particular extra functionality that we would like to be included in this particular sprint, the team will then have to then do an impact assessment and also to understand, okay, this particular functionality, will it cause more issues if we include it in this sprint, or can we include it in our next sprint to then build a particular functionality and embed it with whatever product we have shipped in this current sprint. All that sort of impact assessments will be done, and then if it's if it concludes that, you know what, this is a mandatory critical task that needs to go into this particular sprint, then it will be put into consideration into this particular sprint. But however, if it's not on that critical, on that critical level where it's not critical that it needs to go into the sprint, then you know what, as the Scrum Master, I'll be telling my product owner, Mr. Product Owner, apologies, but we're going to include it into the next sprint, and then we will iterate it and integrate it with this particular sprint that we've just completed. Reason why we try to avoid we try to avoid as much disruption in the sprint is because it disrupts and it confuses our velocity, and also that particular product is already being built. If you bring in a new task, that will mean that we might need to go back to sprint planning. So we might need to go back to sprint planning to then take a look at, okay, so this particular task now, we will have to break it, this particular functionality, we'll have to break it down into what? Tasks. So after we broke it down into tasks, we will then have to do what? Attach story points to it as well, So after we've then attached story points to it, we will then have to do what? Then go back into the sprint. Now, that is a long-winded process. So we would rather not go through that. But if this situation comes where we have to, and it's critical, then of course, agile is agile. It's flexible, we will be as flexible as possible. I hope that answers your question, though.
Yeah, it does. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, no worries, man. Okay, I think somebody was saying somebody should. Did I say somebody was saying somebody? Sorry. Let me see. Somebody was saying Sammy should take off his video. So Sammy, if your video is on, please.
My video is not on. It's not on. It's not me.
Sorry. All right. So sorry then. Whoever's video is on, please take it off. So before I am very conscious of asking a question before I move on from this particular slide. Any questions? Because I'm sure a lot of questions, oh, Daniel. Yeah. Daniel, sorry, please take out your video. Any questions, guys? I will answer any questions at this stage. Yeah. Hopefully it will help your understanding of the next slides coming up. So I'll start taking questions now.
Sorry, could you go over backlog tasks again? I was wondering if there's any difference between that and things like user stories.
Yes.
Are backlog tasks any different from stories?
Yes. So your product backlog, usually it consists of user stories. Yes? Yeah. Yeah. Your sprint backlog is usually consists of tasks. Tasks that need to be completed in order to achieve that particular user story.
Okay, so can you give examples of what these tasks might be?
Okay, so you know what? I will use a very, very example. Yeah. So
okay,
product backlog. Yeah. You say as a user, yes, I want to eat. For all my Nigerian brothers and sisters on the call, I want to eat amala. Yeah. because I have a very tough meeting tomorrow that I want to go there and crush. And it's only
Okay.
Amala that can help me, yeah, achieve that, right? So as a user, that is what I want. That's your product backlog, yeah? Okay. So we
Sorry, can you give an example, please? I really don't understand that example. Can you give another example
okay,
with what you just said?
all right. Okay, you see, the issue here is I'm trying to give very simplistic examples, and trust me, that is an example on its own, right? Okay, so I wouldn't use the word I will use rice, right? So as a user, I want to eat rice, yeah. I want to eat rice, and this is a real example, right? I want to eat rice so that I will have enough carbohydrates in my system because my carbohydrate levels are low. Yeah, this is because what I did previously is I used a technical example of a login feature, right? And from what I'm hearing, some people don't understand. So let me break it down very simplistic. I want to eat rice because I want because I need carbohydrate in my system. My carbohydrate levels are low. Fantastic, no problems. Yeah, you want to be able to eat rice. Yes, not a problem at all. Okay, that's your product. The user has a need to eat rice. The user has a need to log in. The user has a need to log out. The user has a need to post up pictures. The user has a need to post up videos. The user has a need to view stories. You know, the Instagram stories at the top of the page where people post up live videos and stuff. The user has all those needs. That's your product backlog.
Okay.
Most of your user needs are usually in your product backlog. So I'm going to go back to my rice example. Yeah. So I want to be able to eat rice. Yeah. That's not a problem at all. Yeah. So the team comes together. To say, okay, so your developers, your testers, your content designers, they all come together, right? Now, in simplistic terms, yeah, actually your chef, which is probably your developer, comes, yes, your waiter, yeah, which is, comes as well. Who else is involved in cooking food? Anybody that is involved in cooking food and delivering that food, yeah, they all come together, right? So think about a restaurant here. They all come together and they then say, okay, all right, this user here, right? He wants to eat rice. So what do we have to do? We have to do what? We're going to have to do what? Wash the rice first. After we wash the rice, what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to put it in hot water. Then we have to do what? Make sure there's enough gas to be able to light the fire. Yeah. So light the fire. We need to light the fire as well. We need something to be able to spark up the fire, right? Yeah. Okay, we get that as well. We get a pot. We get the water. We put the rice in the pot. Okay, how long is this supposed to take? Okay, it's supposed to take X number of minutes to boil. Forgive me, guys. Yeah, even rice I don't even know how to cook. But if X number of minutes, put it on. Now all those are tasks. Making sure that there's enough gas is a task already. Getting the pot is a task. Yeah. All these things are tasks. So all those tasks would then be put in. Where's my mouse? All those tasks would then be put in your sprint backlog, because in that particular sprint, yes, that sprint that you're working on, let's say a 2-week sprint, yeah. So you're using 2 weeks to cook rice, yeah. God forbid. But in that particular sprint, yeah, you are focusing on making sure that you deliver that particular user story of the user wants to eat rice. I hope that example was a bit simpler than the login one.
Yeah, but there's still so there's the sprint backlog from your image. There's a sprint backlog one, and there's the backlog tasks.
Oh yeah.
So it's the backlog tasks I was wondering about.
Oh yes.
Because I was thinking that the sprint backlog would be the stories you're currently working on in this sprint.
Oh yes, you are right. Yes, you are right. So the backlog task, apologies, yes, you are right. I'm confusing the both of them. The backlog task is a task. Yep. The sprint backlog are the user stories that you've chosen from the product backlog to work on in that sprint. Sometimes it might be one user story, sometimes it might be 2 user stories, sometimes it might be as many user stories that you feel like you can achieve in that particular sprint. You choose it, and yes, you are right. You then break it down into tasks here.
So you're saying that the backlog tasks are the development and testing activities for the user story.
No.
No, the backlog, the sprint backlog are the
No.
it compiles it consists of the product items or the user stories that you've chosen from here. So one of them could be login, right? And another one here could be post-op pictures. Another one here could be post-op videos. Yeah. So you would then say, as a team, okay, you know what? Actually, we feel like we can achieve these particular 3 stories. Yeah. Login, post-op pictures, post-op videos. You then move those 3 into your sprint backlog. Yeah. So login, post-op pictures, user stories. So once you've committed yourself to say, okay, we're going to achieve these 3 in this sprint, that's when you then break it down into, okay, the backlog task, what do we need to actually do to achieve this particular 3 that we've chosen for this sprint?
Sage, if I may ask a question because I'm a little bit confused.
Tell me.
From the product backlog, that means you are saying these are the user's requests, user needs. That is invariably that there may likely to be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 requests, and the team now we only take 1 or 2 to sprint backlog.
Yes.
And break it down into the backlog task.
Yes. Spot on. You've just said it.
Okay.
Yeah, but my Sage, my question was, for the log on use case, can you give us examples of tasks so that we can be sure we understand what the backlog tasks will be? Because we already understand that you've chosen stories from your product backlog and brought them into your sprint backlog.
Yeah.
But what I'm confused about is what are examples of backlog tasks?
Okay.
What are examples of tasks that you would do?
All right, so let's choose the login, for example, right? Yeah, so one of the tasks for the login will be actually designing the login page.
Yeah, which was what I was asking earlier, if it meant that examples of the tasks would be development or testing activities.
Oh, yes, that's correct. Did I say
that's why I was confused.
Apologies if I said no. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Development activities, testing activities, coding activities, design activities, quality assurance activities, which is also considered as testing. All of that will all be broken down into the tasks.
So if you were using a tool like Jira, would you then need to create tasks on Jira, or would you just what would you then do? Would you, because obviously you would have your story on Jira, but would you then need to create tasks as well for that story?
Yes, you then need to create tasks for that story as well. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's done differently. Okay, so it might be done differently on the project that you are working on in Tritech. Yeah. Again, that could be because of maybe constraints of resources that will be on the project, bits and pieces like that. The company that I did my training with before I got my job, the company I did my training with, we didn't even used to break it down into backlog tasks. Yeah. All we used to do is break it down into user stories, yeah, and then give the developer. We had only one developer, and we used to give the developer the user story, and the guy used to go away and build it. But when
that's what I've been used to myself, yeah.
Sorry?
I was saying that's what I've been used to myself. So that's why I was a bit confused about the backlog.
In the real world, no, when you actually work for a company, depending on the size of the company, when you work for a company, you would then realize that you once you've chosen the user stories that you're going to be working on in that particular sprint, yeah, you have to break it down into tasks.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just a difference. Yeah, but very good question, to clarify bits that I might have muddled up a little bit there. So apologies. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions, guys? Because I remember my first time that I actually joined a session like this, or I had somebody explain this to me, I had loads of questions in my mind. So any further questions before I move on from this?
Say another question that may need clarification. In this product backlog, is it possible to take the holistic of the request of the customer to sprint backlog, or you need to break it down? Because from the explanation now, it seems that the product backlog may not be completely be taken together. It's going to be bit by bit, or is it possible? Like, for example, I want to log in to view my account. Can it be processed holistically, or it has to be broken down?
You're gonna have to help me with that question again. You know, I beg of you.
Okay, what I'm saying is that from the product backlog, which is the customer's names, from what we have you explained. Yes, I'm saying, for example, if the customer says, I want to log in into my account to view my statements, like that one now is a complete request of the customer.
The user story, yeah.
Yes. Is it a real story? Can the story be taken holistically to Spring backlog? Because from what the other lady said now, the Spring backlog, because you have changed my orientation completely. The Spring backlog now is where coding, system testings, No. That's what you said.
No. It's the backlog tasks. The
backlog tasks is where the information are broken down into tasks.
Okay, let me go through this again with you. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So product backlog. Yeah. So product backlog, right? You have your user needs or your system needs or whichever business needs are there, right? It's a collection of needs. Yeah. You have that there. So you then, for instance, you then pick one, right? You then say, okay, look, in the sprint planning meeting, you then say, as a team, this is the particular user story. For example, user story we would want to work on in this sprint. Yeah. Okay. So let's just choose one, for example. You then put that one. You then take that one from here and you put it here, right, into your sprint backlog.
Sorry. For clarity, let's say, for example, the customer's request is, I want to log in into my account to view statements.
Yeah.
It's a story. It's a complete story.
That's right.
Yes. How do you break that one? How do you break that one into minute stories? Okay. Because I believe that those stories should be taken together into sprint backlog to discuss about.
Yes.
Because from what you are saying now, that means it is not possible to process the customer's request together.
No, it is. It is. You see, that story that you've just said, that particular story is one story, like you said, isn't it, right? So you so you take that story and you put it in your sprint backlog, right? Because that particular sprint, you're working, for instance, only 2 weeks, right? So you are telling yourselves as a whole team, you're telling yourselves that in that particular sprint, which is 2 weeks, which is starting maybe today for 2 weeks, we want to be, at the end of that sprint, we want to be able to achieve building that particular user story. Yeah. So you take that user story from your product backlog, you put it into your sprint backlog. Once it's in your sprint backlog, as a team, you then get together in the sprint planning meeting still, to then break it down into tasks. So you then break down that particular user story into executable tasks that would definitely help you achieve that user story. Now, in terms of what those tasks are, as a Scrum Master or as a project manager, you're not responsible for breaking down those user stories into tasks. The team are responsible for breaking down that user story into tasks. So your UX designer, your developers, your testers, your content designers, BAs, everybody is responsible in breaking down that particular user story into tasks. So your UX designer will come and say, okay, for us to be able to achieve that particular login functionality, we would need to conduct user research. We will need to, design the login page. Then after we designed it, we then need to go back for user feedback on that particular design. Okay, maybe they'll design like maybe 2 or 3, share it to users. Users will maybe pick 1 or 2, then they come back and show it to the product owner. The product owner might say, oh yes, you know what, I'm happy with this particular design, let's move on, and then you move on. That's the UX designer alone. Then the developer might say, okay, to be able to develop this, we need to use this type of code. We will need to use this type of DMZ security feature. Different kind of tasks will come up, but the team are responsible for bringing up those tasks. It's impossible for the Scrum Master or the project manager to know every single task for every single user story. If that ever happens, then basically that project manager or Scrum Master can do everybody's job, can do the developer's job, can do the UX designer's job, can do the content designer's job, which can never be the case. Actually, I wouldn't say never, because nothing is impossible, but which is usually not the case. Do you understand? I hope. Hello?
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, it's okay.
All right. If you want more clarification, don't hesitate to give me a ring or send me a WhatsApp personal WhatsApp message, and I'm happy to go through with you in more details. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Fabulous, guys. I think that's enough questions for this one here, all right? Because I'm just kind of conscious of time. We'll sort of move on. So what we're going to discuss now is we're going to discuss roles in Scrum. So there's 3 different bits that we're going to discuss here. We're going to discuss roles in Scrum. Then after we've done that, we're going to discuss the artifacts that Scrum that any Scrum methodology should produce. After we discuss artifacts, then we're going to discuss ceremonies, Scrum ceremonies in more details. Then after we've done that, then we would do our quiz just to make sure that everybody sort of understands what we've spoken about. All right, so the roles in Scrum is very, very simple. You got your product owner, you got your Scrum Master, and you got your development team. Now, for your product owner, your product owner really is responsible for a lot of things. The product owner is responsible for the direction of that particular project. Product owner is responsible for prioritizing and refining the backlog as well, because that product owner represents your customer. That product owner represents the business. Product owner also is responsible for explaining and making sure that the team understand the vision and goals of that particular project. Also, the product owner is responsible for any changes also that happens in that particular project. The Scrum Master is responsible for justifying that change and either making recommendations on if that change should go ahead or not based on the team's suggestions. The Scrum Master cannot just come and say, oh no, we can't do this. Scrum Master has to consult the team if a change is looking to be made. Okay. Any questions on the product owner? Because the product owner is quite straightforward, to be honest. The product owner is also responsible for making sure that the return on investment of that particular product that is being shipped is realized. So remember I said based on customer feedback, customers could be saying, oh, you know what, the app doesn't have this, we want this,
Sage, was there a screen just before the product owner, just before this particular screen? Was there another? Yep, this one, that's it. Thank you.
No worries. So guys, you guys will get the slides as well, so it will save you having to make any notes. Only if you guys want to score 100% in the quiz, you get to go out on lunch with me, and if you're living in Scotland, then hey ho.
Are you paying?
I like that. I can see the development team is beginning to challenge. Yes. All right, let's move on. Any questions on the product owner just yet? Okay, no questions. So you see here, before I move on to the next bit here, the product owners, understanding the responsibilities of a product owner and finding your perfect product owner in companies is one of the most challenging things to do. Why is that? It's because most product owners are juggling the responsibilities of a product owner as well as juggling the responsibilities of their own day job as well. That's usually what happens in most companies. In larger institutions and companies, they are able to dedicate one particular resource to being the product owner. They can afford that, but in most other companies, they usually juggle it up. So sometimes you have to try and help your product owner out as well. So one of the projects that I'm working on, the product owner is extremely busy, and I know that. So even though the product owner is responsible for actually delivering the user stories, we decided, all right, you know what, we would put the user stories together and just get him or her to sign it off. So depending on the kind of relationship you have with your product owner, you can meet in between. But that is as long as everybody understands the principles of Scrum and what their responsibilities are as well. All right, Scrum Master. Scrum Master is not a project manager, I must say, and I must make that clear. Scrum Masters are not project managers. Scrum Masters, in bigger projects, you will have your project manager, then you will have your Scrum Master as well. So the project manager usually will manage the project right from the first stage all the way to the last stage, right? So the project manager is responsible for, of course, gathering all the risks and issues, assumptions and dependencies and managing that, all the control documents for every single stage, your reporting documents as well. Also your stakeholder management, all your governance and policies, all those bits and pieces, the project manager is responsible for all of that. Scrum Master, as you can see on the screen, is the facilitator. Scrum Master is responsible for making sure that Agile principles and governance policies for Agile are adhered to. Also responsible for making sure that there is close collaboration amongst team members and that Scrum practices are carried out. Also making sure that the Scrum Master is also responsible for addressing any issues that might affect the Scrum process, right? Not the project process, that particular Scrum process. Yeah. Very importantly, I said earlier, he removes impediments so that the team can focus on the work at hand. Absolutely important, this bit. That's if you want your team to trust you as a Scrum Master. And of course, he's not typically a manager or a lead, but he's just influential. And of course, to coach those who do not do direct command or control. Also, the Scrum Master has to be a subject matter expert in Agile Scrum methodology. All right. Any questions on Scrum Master? Oh, please.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by the last one? That he's not a typical manager or lead, but he's an influential leader. He's an influential leader.
So,
I mean, the last bit, who does not
do
direct command or control?
Yes. So a Scrum Master is not one to come and say, oh, you must do this and I expect it to be done by next week, Monday.
All right.
Yeah. No, as Scrum Masters, we don't do direct command or control. What we will do is we would influence the team, right? We will engage the team. We will motivate the team. We would stress and make it clear to the team why it's important that they all work as a team. And if anyone is not collaborating, we address that immediately. And make sure that there is a smooth flow of delivery of tasks, right, in that particular sprint. Anything that is stopping that from happening, we've got to tackle it. Now remember, going back to the sprint planning meeting, the Scrum Master does not come and say, oh, okay, so guys, these are all your tasks, Mark, you are doing this, Tim, you are doing this, no. The Scrum Master will come and say, okay, guys, we've got this user story to achieve. What we're going to have to do now is we're going to have to break it down into tasks. After we've broken down into tasks, then we have to look at ourselves and decide if we can attach any more items from the product backlog into this particular sprint, or based on all the tasks that we have created from that one user story that we've already chosen, is that enough for us to work on in this sprint? And then the team then look at themselves and say, okay, all right, yes or no, we can attach one more particular product from the product backlog, and we can break that down again and see if we can achieve that as well. That's just one of the responsibilities of a Scrum Master, though. Now, just to go back again, Scrum Masters, you must be a subject matter expert in Scrum. You must understand every single little bit of it, and you must be ready to train people in the company that you're working for. You must be ready to train them on Agile and Scrum, Agile Scrum in particular. And I'll end with this: Scrum Masters. If you check on the job board, Scrum Masters, the cheapest they earn is £300 to £350 a day. And for permanent staff, Scrum Masters earn cheapest of about 40k to 50k cheapest. Now, you're probably wondering why they earn very similar to what project managers earn. That is because of the importance, again, I stress, of Agile Scrum methodology in companies these days. Okay, so we've spoken about product. We've spoken about product owner. We've spoken about Scrum Master, development team. I think we've spoken enough about them already, to be honest. But again, I'll touch on it quickly. Cross-functional group. That means that it's a group of colleagues with different skill sets. So, like I said before, you have all ranges of skill sets in there: developers, content designers, UX, and so on and so forth. Collaboration is important as well, and that's the development team's responsibility to make sure that they collaborate with one another. We are all adults here. That's my usual phrase in my sprint planning meetings. We are all adults here, and that we are all focused on achieving the same goal. So there's a lot of emotional management that as a Scrum Master, you will have to get yourself involved in. There's a lot of conflict management as well that you have to get yourself involved in, because remember that the people in your team, in your development team, they are all experts in their own field, so there's a lot of ego in your team as well. So it's about finding that nice balance where everybody understands and appreciates and respects each other to be able to work collaboratively. Attempts to build a potential shippable product increment. Of course, that's the goal. So that's your sprint goal. Your sprint goal is always to build a potential shippable product increment. And of course, your development team must be self-organizing. So in Scrum, nobody's coming in there to baby anybody. Everyone is expected to be of standard in behavior. However, that's never the case, because we all have different personalities and we all have different behaviors as well. It's about finding that balance. Okay, Scrum artifacts. So product backlog. So let's break the product backlog down a little bit more, even though we have already. Let's break it down a little bit more quickly. I'm just kind of conscious of time. So the product backlog, like I said before, is got your features or your user stories, depending on what you're building. You prioritize them in Moscow order. So your must-haves, your could haves, your should haves, and your won't haves. This is broken down differently, but it's the same. It's the same methodology in terms of Moscow. Product backlog items as well, small size, lots of details. You can prioritize it in this order as well. Large size, fewer details. Depending again on what prioritization criteria you're working with, then you use that to prioritize your product backlog items. However, this is the product owner's responsibility. But the product owner will always consult the development team when prioritizing the product backlog items. Because remember, like I said before, you cannot have the ability to view the balance when you've not even built the login screen. You might think that that's a very, very basic and very obvious example. Yeah. However, when you're working on different kind of projects, there's other examples that can be used where it is not obvious that you have to do one before the other. That's where your development team will come into play. Okay, so I did say that I was going to share an example of product backlog slash user stories. So this is another example of the product backlog screen slash user stories. This one here shows you the priority order. So it's been prioritized already. It shows you here the estimate. So that goes back to your story points. So they're estimating the story points on here. So you can see this one is 13. This is a big one. So let's see what it says. I can modify the existing headline for any show page. And that's as an editor. So for that one, the team will have to build an editing interface first. After they've built and designed the editing, or we call it the admin interface, they then have to build in the functionalities that will integrate with that particular interface to carry out the functionality of modifying the existing headline for any show page. That's a tough one. Let's look at an easy one here. Number one, I can see when the next show will begin for the show page I'm on. Again, that could be a very, very simple one there, where it could just be something. Where it could just be a little line, a little phrase at the bottom, or a line at the bottom of the page to say, stay tuned for the next show, which is XYZ show, something like that. Sprint. So already they've broken down the stories into sprints. So they've chosen their sprints already, and all this will be done in sprint planning meeting. They've said, okay, they can build one, they can build this one, they can build this one as well, this one, and this one, and this one. 4 user stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, all in sprint 1. So they take all of that, put it in the sprint backlog. Remember, put it in the sprint backlog. Once they put it in the sprint backlog, they then do what? The team will then break it down into executable tasks that they have to go away and carry out. Okay. I'm just kind of conscious I haven't asked if there's any questions so far. So guys, any questions so far? I know this is a lot of information to take in, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
It's a lot of information. Okay.
Is it? Apologies, guys. Esther, you said what's an estimate? An estimate. I will cover that in the next session. I will go into more details as to velocity, how that's calculated, and story points as well, how that's calculated. So story point is the same as estimate, yeah? I'll tell you that for now. Yeah, but I'll cover that out later. Because if I do that now, yeah, we will not leave this call. So bear with me. Any other questions, guys, so far?
Hi, sorry, I've got a question.
Please.
To get the product backlog, you mentioned that the product owner will speak to the project team. Does that involve the developers as well?
Yes, yes, it does. Well, was that your question?
Yeah, it was
Okay,
kind of a question, and
fantastic. No, good. Your question has actually raised another question in my mind. So, you asked the question, when putting the product backlog together, do they consult the team?
develop.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but only when they are prioritizing. When the initial
So how do we
go on.
how do we come about with the, because at the product backlog level is the high level requirement, so which goes into the product backlog itself. But in order for the product owner to have this requirement in his backlog, how does it come about, like getting the requirements in the first place? I know, is it speaking to like the stakeholders? I mean, how is the requirement gathered? Is it speaking to the developers first to see if this is buildable, or is it speaking to? I know you mentioned the project team, but obviously it can't only just be the project team that he speaks to in order to get his requirements that's going to go into the product backlog. I don't know if I've confused you.
No, you haven't. You made yourself absolutely clear to me. So, thanks, Samuel. Very good question, to be honest. So, is done. What I've realized, right, in my experience, is that it's actually done differently in different companies. But however, it's still sort of it's a similar process, but it's just done differently. So, I'll tell you how we do it. Yeah. So, how we do it is we gather the high level requirements first. Okay, like you said. So once we gather the high level requirements, right? We gather that from the business, from the product owner, and also from the users. Yeah, very high level. Yeah. Now, once we've got a high level requirement, we then go ahead to then break that down into detailed level requirements. Okay. Yeah. Now we break it down into different detailed level requirements using our to be process diagrams, which is also called activity diagrams, which can also yes, process flow diagrams. Yeah. So we achieve our detailed level requirements, yeah, from a combination of the high level requirements to be process diagrams and activity diagrams. Because on the detail level requirements, you will have everything that you want to have, everything that the customer requires, that the system requires, that all the users require. So all the users, meaning admin, customer, public, private user, all the
whole process from the A to Z. Who's going to be impacting? The system's going to be impacting.
Detailed, in the coming up sessions, what I can do is I can share with you guys examples of my own detail level requirements, and I don't joke around with my detail level requirements. Why don't I joke around with it? Is because that detail level requirement is what's then going to form our backlog.
Yeah.
Are you with me, Samuel?
Yeah.
That's what's then going to form our backlog. So we will then convert those detailed level requirements into either user stories or into features, whichever is more relevant for the project that we are working on.
Okay.
And then once that is then done, you of course you will then have your product backlog. But at that point in time, your product backlog would only have been created, not prioritized.
Yeah.
So to prioritize it, you then go hold a meeting with, it's called a product backlog refinement meeting. You then hold that meeting with the team, like you said, the developers, the testers, the content designers, the UX designers, everybody. You hold it with everybody, and then you then prioritize. The product owner will say, no. Look, you see this number one here, yeah? You see this number one. The product owner can say, look, this number one here, we want this done ASAP, because if we do this, it will bring in the biggest revenue for us right now as a business, you know. But the development team will then say, oh no, hold on. Before we can do number one, yeah, we first have to do number 6 first, you know. I'm just taking this for example. Are you with me, Samuel?
Yeah.
Before we can number one, we have to do number 6 first. Why? Is because, you know, number one will depend on information from number 6 to be able to even do what? Function. Oh, so the product owner will then say, oh yeah, okay, all right, cool. Okay, all right. So how quick can you do number 6 then? Because I want number one done. You know, and then that's the kind of conversation that happens in the sprint planning meeting, you know, where, you know, back and forth until we then establish a priority order for all of them. Agreed by everybody. All right.
So do you have squabbles where, for instance, the product owner, obviously they're representing the customer, obviously the views of the customer or customer satisfaction or whatever. Do you have like a situation where the product owner is saying to the developers that, no, this is what I want, because this will obviously maybe help us to move quickly, or it will help us to start generating income, or
Yeah.
will help us to enhance the system as quickly as possible? Because if we were to go to number 6 and number 1 is not done, there will be problems. Do you have that where the product owner is standing his ground and just saying no?
Oh yes, certainly. You know, no doubt about it. You know, because the product owner is, you know, like you said, is representing the customer, but also the product owner is also, remember, is representing the business as well.
Yeah.
So the product owner, at the end of, you know, only God knows how often, depending on the company and their operational rhythm, the product owner might be reporting back to the CEO, or might be reporting back to, you know, the MDs of the companies or whoever about the project. So the product owner also is under pressure to an extent. So you are right. The product owner sometimes will say, oh yes, you know what, we need this because, you know, da. But the developers will have to make the product owner understand that technically it is not the right way to do it. So, you know, as a Scrum Master, it's my own responsibility to be able to make sure that everybody understands what everybody is trying to say.
Yeah.
So once that information from the technical team has been given to the product owner has to accept the fact that technically this is just not right, or it is impossible, or it can cause serious issues down the line. So the product owner will then go back to wherever he's reporting to then say, okay, look, I know you guys said you wanted this to be done, yeah, but look, the Scrum team have said that this is why this cannot be done because da, right? And then everybody then does what? Say, okay, all right, we understand. Carry on.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if the product owner then says, okay, I understand the risk of doing it the way I want to do it, and I am still happy to go ahead with doing it the way I want to do it, even with that risk being highlighted, then hey, happy days, fine, we crack on. But he's aware of the risk and he's aware that this could happen if this doesn't happen. You understand?
Yeah. He's taking on the risk for himself.
Yes, exactly. Spot on. All right, cool. Nice one, Samuel. Very good.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys, before I move on? I'm just kind of conscious of time, you know. It's way past already, so feel free to leave, you know, the call if you wish. The session is being recorded anyway, but I would move as fast as possible. No further questions, I believe. Okay.
This is Frederick.
Hello, Frederick.
I just wanted to find out if, let's say the product owner insists that they do it this way instead of what the developer has suggested. Is there like some sort of putting things down in writing or to confirm that, I mean, this is what the product owner is saying, or you just, make it informal?
Oh, no. Yes, you are right. You have to put it into writing. You have to put into writing that those particular tasks have been prioritized based on this, Scrum Master reports to the project manager to say, okay, there's a risk. Well, in this particular case, in the project that I'm working on, I'm the project manager running the whole project as well as the Scrum Master running the Scrum meetings. Yeah. So that way, I already know about all the risks and the issues myself anyway. But in the situation where there's a Scrum Master and there's a project manager, the Scrum Master will then have to go to the project manager to then report to the project manager, because the Scrum Master reports to the project manager as well. So Scrum Master reports to the project manager to say, okay, this is what happened in our sprint planning meeting, blah, 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 blah. This was what was agreed, and these are the risks that are involved. Project manager will then take the risk, document it, highlight it, and then send it out to all the stakeholders to say, this is the decision that was made. In his progress report, he'll put it in there to say, this is the decision that was made. These are the risks of what could happen, and this is the owner of the risk. The owner of the risk of that particular risk will be the product owner. Did I answer your question, Frederick?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Fabulous. Okay. All right. It's a little bit intensive, I know, guys, yeah, but again, I did say at the start it cannot be covered in an hour and a half. All right. So we've got sprint backlog to do. Yeah. Let me see what else we got to do. We got Scrum ceremonies to quickly touch on. I have an example of a 2-week sprint and sort of the timings as to where we hold the meetings. We've got sprint planning meeting to do. Oh my God, we have a few. We have the daily Scrum meeting to really discuss. We have the sprint review meeting to discuss, sprint retrospective, and then the quiz. Okay, I'm kind of cautious of time, guys, yeah, all right? And I am very tempted to sort of hold it here for now. What I'll do is, what do you guys think? Can you please just put in chat box yes for me to hold it for now, or no, I should continue? And if you don't mind, you got to help me on this, guys, please, yeah? All right, I'm getting some yeses. It's a yes affair. It's a yes affair. All right. I have it. Can we quickly complete it? I like that one. Oh, Mabel, you are a minority here, Okay. All right, guys. All right. The majority, roughly about 96% of the replies I just received said yes, continue. Can we go straight to the quiz? Somebody is feeling confident today. Well done, Yeti. All right, guys, time. Okay, so we'll give ourselves 10 o'clock. Yeah, so that means we have another roughly about 15 minutes. So I'm going to whiz through this, right? Okay? But what I'm going to do is, in my next session, yeah, the first 15 minutes of my next session, we would quickly revisit what we've spoken about, right? And then I would have questions that I will be asking you guys as well, yeah, to start off the next session, just to make sure that we all understand what we spoke about in this session. One thing I'm kind of conscious of as well is I don't want to leave these sessions too far in between. I want to make sure that the knowledge is fresh, and we can continue with the flow of the story and the flow of the journey that we are on. So today is Wednesday. Again, stay tuned. I'll post up another one, possibly in the next couple of days, maximum couple of days, yeah, to continue this. Okay, so sprint backlog. The good thing is we've spoken about this previously anyway. So sprint backlog, like I said, it consists of the user stories that you've chosen, right? And then also, again, the reason why I kind of jumbled everything up at the start is because in your sprint backlog, you would have the user stories that you've chosen from the product backlog, but also in your sprint backlog, you also have the tasks as well in there. You would have broken it down already in that sprint backlog as well anyway. So I will show you what I mean. So in the forecast, the forecast is more or less, this is the other thing I must tell you guys. The terminologies that are used are different with different companies. Some companies use forecast. Some companies use backlog. Some companies use user stories on there. Some companies use PBIs. Some companies use backlog items, items next to it, but they all mean the same thing. Yeah. Oh, some companies use features. Yeah. Instead of forecast, they put features there. It all means the same thing. The more you read, the more you study, the more you watch videos, the more you will know about all these terminologies and what they all mean. Let's pick filter service tickets, for example. That's a user story on there. It's been given a story point of 8. Yeah? It's been given a story point of 8 based on the complexity of the tasks that need to be completed. So watch my mouse. Based on the complexity of the tasks that need to be completed, that's what is used to determine that particular story point. So the to-do, under the to-do is where you have all your tasks on there. Yeah? So the backlog tasks, okay? All right, I'm going to go back here just to make sure we are all on the same page. I'm going to go back here. Yeah? No, excuse me. Backlog tasks, yeah? So this one here that we were talking about earlier, that's the same thing. Yeah. To do, backlog tasks. It's put on there, so you can see they've broken it down already. They've broken down that user story into tasks. Some tasks are already in progress for that particular user story, and actually some of them are done. Now, in some companies, or depending on the size of the project, you might want to have also a review QA, yeah, which is also called the testing. Yeah, this is where all the tasks that have been completed are all tested one way or the other. Okay. Scrum ceremonies. So we've spoken about the artifacts, right? So 2 artifacts on there: product backlog, sprint backlog. Yeah. Now, all the ceremonies: sprint planning, daily Scrum meetings, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. Well, Scrum is more or less like we are one big family, we are one big happy family, right? We're going to spend a lot of time together, and we're going to talk to each other a lot, and we're going to love and respect each other as well at the same time, which of course, is a wish list, because that is never the case. So Scrum activities, this diagram just shows it in very high level details. You go from your sprint planning, which is number 1, into your daily Scrum meetings. Yeah, so after you've established which user story you'll be working on and which task you'll be working on, right? Then you move into your daily Scrum meetings. Your Scrum, your sprint cycle could be maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever happens. You must hold a daily Scrum meeting for 15 minutes each. Maximum. Reason why it shouldn't be more than 15 minutes is because you're all standing, and trust me, standing for, even for me, standing for more than 5 minutes, my face is already, screwing up. So 15 minutes is maximum. Sprint review meetings as well. Sprint review meetings, that's where you talk about the product that has been developed. You're showing your product owner. Sprint retrospective. So after the sprint review, you then do your sprint retrospective. Your sprint retrospective is where you then talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what is the team still puzzled about, and what could have been done differently. Just, reflecting on the sprint that had just been completed, and taking your learns from it. In Prince 2, you call it, your learns, isn't it? Right? Yeah, that's more or less your sprint retrospective there. Product backlog refinement. So after you done all of that, before you then go into your sprint planning meeting, this is where you then hold that product backlog refinement meeting that I spoke about, where the product owner and the team then do what? Refine the product backlog and reprioritize the product backlog if required, based on the success or the failure, whichever the case may be, of the previous sprint that you've worked on. So this is an example of a 2-week sprint. Sprint planning meeting here usually happens. Again, you can start your sprint on any day. Nobody says sprints must start on a Monday. However, for simplistic tracking sake, you know, tracking it on a weekly basis, Monday to Friday, sometimes is easier mentally. But there's nothing to stop you from starting on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. So sprint planning meetings sprint planning meetings are your longest meeting, because that is where a lot of discussions are held back and forth between the product owner and the developers and the content designers and the team, you know, and then estimating the user stories as well, you know, attaching story points to it and all those bits and pieces. Then once that happens, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So all these days, can anyone just tell me, can anyone just put on the chat what should be happening on those days? I didn't put it in there. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Friday, Monday, and Tuesdays. Something is supposed to be happening. A particular meeting. Yes, please. Thank you very much, Frederick. Stand-up meetings. Spot on. Yeah. Olufemi, I'm not sure who you are executing, but very good try, very good try, and thanks for your answers. If you do not get involved, you know, again, the best way to learn is to interact and collaborate. So thank you for your answers, right or wrong. Stand-up meeting needs to be happening, also called Scrum meetings. You know, needs to be happening on a daily basis. But you are right as well, Olufemi. Actually, Olufemi, you're right as well. The execution of those tasks need to be happening within those in those days as well. You know, but that wasn't the answer I was looking for, though. But again, that is right. So Scrum meetings are happening on a daily basis, 15 minutes, you know, usually it's preferred to be held in the mornings when, you know, everybody still remembers what happened the day before, you know, and also everybody is still sort of, you know, on a high, you know, because if you're looking to hold your Scrum meetings at 4 p.m. in the evening, you might not get the best responses or the best engagement from the team. So let's backlog refinement meeting then happens on the Wednesday. Yeah, backlog refinement meeting, the sprint review meeting, and your sprint retrospective meeting then happens. Right. Moving on to the next one. Sprint planning meeting, guys. I think we've spoken enough about this. Yeah, we've spoken enough about it. That's where you pick items from your product backlog, move into your sprint backlog, and then break it down into tasks. As you can see here, everybody in the team is involved in it. That's the product owner with the glasses and with the suits and tie. I don't know why they've decided to dress him like that, and they decided to dress everybody else like cooks. But that's the situation. Anyway, that's the Scrum Master here. Anyway, all right. Moving on, daily Scrum meetings. Daily Scrum meetings, like I said earlier, team reports to each other on what they've worked on yesterday, what they'll be working on today, any impediments or blockers, maximum time of 15 minutes, and then that is where you then move your cards or your tickets. Yeah. So these are called cards or tickets. You then move them as you go along in your stand-up meetings. Yeah. You can do it either way. The team can move it themselves, or the Scrum Master can move it themselves. You know, to be honest, whatever works for your team. In your daily Scrum meetings as well, remember the Scrum Master is not, even though he goes with the word Scrum Master, he is not a master. He or she is not a master in any way whatsoever. they are not a master of the team, they are a master of Scrum. That's what they are. So therefore, when the team are reporting, they are not reporting to the Scrum Master, they are reporting to themselves. Because the team are all responsible for making sure that that particular shippable product is achieved at the end of that particular sprint. So the team talk to each other. The team don't talk to the Scrum Master. What a very common mistake or error in companies that I have seen is where the team, they're holding a Scrum meeting and the team are all looking at the Scrum Master, and anytime anybody from the team is talking, they will be talking, but they will be looking at the Scrum Master. When I first joined the council, they tried doing that. I told them, so every single time somebody is talking in my Scrum meeting and they're looking at me, I straight away point to the team. So now they've gotten used to the fact that they shouldn't be looking at me when they are talking about what they've done yesterday and what they'll be working on. They need to be looking at themselves. That way, there is a psychological sense of responsibility and a psychological sense of direct reporting to each other, not to me. All right. Review meetings. Again, like I said, the team to demonstrate potentially shippable product owners determine which products are done. Also, the product owner will determine if that particular product that they are shipping meets the acceptance criteria that had initially been agreed on. And also, they will review velocity. I'll go through velocity next. The more we talk about this.
Stage. I think I'm having some issues. Not issue, because in a meeting, there should be somebody that will spearhead as the head. Because if in a meeting everybody is looking at himself as being responsible to self, somebody should be there who I can say, quote unquote, an umbrella, like a coordinator.
Yes. You know what?
Who is that person?
You've just nailed it on the head, right? A coordinator is the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is responsible for making sure that the team collaborates with each other. He is responsible for making sure that the Scrum practices are adhered to. The Scrum Master is responsible for any impediments that could come in and cause issues for the team. The Scrum Master is responsible for all of that. But however, the Scrum Master is not responsible for the task completions.
Yeah, I got it.
The team are the ones that are responsible for themselves, and they have to report to themselves. Yeah, spot on. To your answer, Samuel, I am a project manager as well as a Scrum Master in my current role. Reason why I left the bank I was working for to go and work for the council is because I wasn't given the opportunity to practice both roles, and I wanted to practice both roles so that I can sort of develop myself and stretch myself, so that when I'm moving on to the next thing, my knowledge and expertise will be even wider, and of course I'll be able to command more money, which is the ultimate, to be honest. But also you have to love what you do. I said that in my previous session. You must love what you do. All right. So, sprint retrospective, spoke about that also. The team then get together. They talk about the product owner is not required in this sprint retrospective. The product owner is not required. The product owner is required in the sprint review, of course, because the team here are demonstrating to the product owner and any other interested stakeholders. They are demonstrating to them the fantastic shippable products that they have managed to build in that particular sprint. Sprint retrospective, what went well, what can we improve, what still puzzles us, what we learned, and slowly but surely, as the sprints go on, what you want to see is that the team start to take control of their own processes. You want to start to see the team starting to challenge each other in a respectful and constructive manner. You would know as a Scrum Master, you would know when the team is beginning to get to that, norming stage. You guys know about the curve, about the change curve. So you have your storming, you have your forming, you have your norming, and then you have your performing. Yeah. So you know when they've gotten to that norming stage, where things are beginning to normalize within the team. Everybody's beginning to understand everybody's kind of behavior and everybody's kind of attitude, and which buttons we shouldn't press and which ones we can press, all those kind of things. It's all part of team management. Okay, I have one question before I move into the quiz. Guys, I appreciate your attendance. I'm just looking for the question. Apologies. I suppose somebody had a question here. I suppose the only individual that manages the burn down chart is the Scrum Master. Yes, that's absolutely right. I'll cover off burn down charts in my subsequent sessions. Yeah, that's going to be one of the things I'm covering. But yes, you are right. The burn down chart is a reporting tool that the Scrum Master is responsible for. Cover that in more details. It's very, very, very interesting. Very interesting, guys. This particular methodology, it's why I love it is because it encourages people to talk to each other more and to share best practices and to share ideas and also to share knowledge of their own roles, because if everybody keeps working together, slowly but surely, the content designer will then begin to understand a little bit of what the developer does. The developer will start to understand a little bit better of what the UX designer does, and then you start to achieve a multi-skilled team. So you get to a stage where the content designer can actually test some of the codes, and it could also help in terms of career progression as well, because you never know which area you might want to go down. All right, I'm going to stop talking. Sorry. All right. Quiz. All right, so in your chat boxes, you want to get this ready. I'll move swiftly. The first question is this. So which statement best describes Scrum? You guys have literally 15 seconds, please. So just drop your answers in there and I'll save it, and I'll pull up the correct answer in a minute. Samuel, give me a call based on that question. Okay, I'm getting some answers. Thank you, Ismaila. Guys, I have 38 of you on the call, It's only Ismaila that just replied. Do you guys please want to get involved? What do you think the answer is? Don't worry if it's wrong. If it's wrong, you remember that it was wrong and then you remember the right one. All right, I'm getting some A's.
Oh.
B's, A's. I'm getting a lot of A's now. I love A's. Okay. All right, guys. That's it for this question. The answer for this one is C.
C.
So take a look at it. A framework that is built in reality checks for complex work in uncertain domains. Yeah. So software development is an uncertain domain. Why is that? Is because, like I said, remember, user needs always change. Today, tomorrow, the day after. And it has built-in reality checks. So built-in your built-in reality checks are your Scrum meetings. That's a reality check. That's where everybody is checking up on each other and making sure that things are going on as they should. It's not a complete methodology that defines how to develop software. Why is it not a complete methodology? It's because, remember, I said at the start of this particular session that there's so many other software methodologies out there, isn't it? None of them are complete. All right, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Next question is this. When is sprint execution completed? So the person who gave the execution answer earlier must get this question right. I think that was Frederick that said execution. Okay, I'm getting some answers again. I'm getting a lot of A's and B's. Yeah. All right, guys. This is not WAEC or GCSEs. All right. The answer here is yesterday. You said C. That's close, and it's right.
C.
That's
I put
where
C.
all the tasks are complete. So all of you that did put C, well done.
Yes.
All of you that did not put C, you would remember now that it is C. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, also remember there's nothing like failure. Yeah. There is only lessons learned, right? There is nothing ever like failure. There is no word like failure. I refuse to use the word failure or to accept failure. If you have failed at anything in life, that means that you have learned something. Focus on that. All right. Next question. Oh, no, the next question has the answer. Oh my gosh. All right, I'll let you guys off this one then. How often should the backlog refinement meeting occur? From the calendar cycle I showed you, you saw there that in a 2-week sprint, it should happen what? At least once every sprint. So you can see on there it says every sprint, yeah? And the answer is A for that. All right, let's move on to the next question. Next question. Sorry?
I'm sorry, Sage. Could you just go back to that slide? So what's the difference between release cycle and this sprint?
Very good question. All right. So release.
Sorry.
No. It's absolutely fine, yeah. So release cycles, yeah.
10 o'clock.
Yes, that's right. I know. All right, guys. I'll cover that in another session. Yeah, but release cycles are different from sprint cycles. Yeah, because you could have multiple sprint cycles into one particular release cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
CEO asks his team to do some work outside the goals of the current sprint in progress. Aha! Somebody had this question. What should the team member do? So I give you guys 5 seconds for this. Let's start seeing some answers coming through. There's no answers yet. Who's going to come in with the first answer? I need to see some answers before I move on to the next one. I have some D's coming through. D's, and it's D. Nice one, guys. Well done, guys. Yeah. All right, great. So I haven't confused most of you. Thank God for that. Next question. What is the Scrum development team expected to do during the first sprint? What is a Scrum development team expected to do during the first sprint? We have some C's coming through. Bobby, you're on fire. We have some C's coming through. All C's, and no. It is A and D. Do you understand why it's A and D? Quickly, I'll explain. The reason why you cannot develop a detailed plan for the rest of the project is because you are doing what? You're working in sprints. So it's going to be very difficult to be able to develop a detailed plan for all the other sprints that you've not even done a sprint planning meeting for. Because remember, it's at the beginning of every single sprint that you hold a sprint planning meeting. So you've not held a sprint planning meeting for the rest of the sprints. There's no way you can put a detailed plan together for the rest of the project. However, you can do what? You can build a thin slice of potentially shippable functionality. Remember, login was one thin slice. And in that particular sprint, of course, you need to test whatever you've built. Yeah? All right. Cool. Next one, we have only, I think, about 3 or 4 more questions.
Oh, no, this is hard.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just kidding.
Don't worry, it will get easier as it goes on. It's always hard at first. Who owns sprint commitments? Okay.
That one is straightforward.
Bees, all the way bees. You were the first to be there, so well done. Well done. All right. Well done as well, everybody. Yetunde, Samuel, Sammy, Steven, everybody. Well done. All right. How is the product backlog arranged? Aha. So do we have large items at the top to small items? You remember you choose one answer here. Most important items at the top to least important items. Items, okay. Items are arranged, are randomly arranged. Mabel. Mabel, did you really? Is that really your final answer? All right, we're getting the B's again. And of course it's B. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Is B.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. What creates a product backlog items effort estimates? Who creates a product backlog items effort? So remember, product backlog items are what? Are user stories. Yes. You know.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yes, I certainly can. Who creates a product backlog items effort estimate?
As in rephrase it, as in ask the
Sorry.
question in a different
Oh, apologies.
manner.
Apologies. Okay. So who is responsible for estimating the product backlog items? All right, I'm getting, we're getting a lot of mixed answers here. A lot of mixed answers. A, B, C, D's. Somebody put G, you know. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Typographical hero.
Okay, let's see what capital A, Sake. Okay. Let's see. It's B.
B.
Well done to everybody who put B.
Wow.
Well done, Romeo. All right, guys, you know why it's B? Let me tell you why it's B. A, the product owner with input from the Scrum development team. That is about prioritization. That is not about estimation. Remember I said that for the prioritization, yeah, the product owner will need to consult the development team to understand which one would have to come before which one. You know, you cannot build the checking balance screen before you build the login screen. You must build the login screen before you build the checking balance screen. You understand? You understand? That is what A is about. B is about saying, okay, to be able to build this, how long is it going to take? What do we need to do? That's the Scrum development team. Okay. I think this is probably the last one. Which of the following is the team responsible for? You have to choose 4. Or actually, guys, you know what? Instead of choosing 4, just put your answer the one that you feel is not the answer.
Okay.
So which of the following is the team not responsible for? That should be the question. Which of the following is the team not responsible for? Yes. This is an easy one. All of you are going to get it. I'm going to move on. The answer is D. Yeah, you're all correct.
Yeah, it's D.
Yeah. That was too easy. Should the product backlog contain tasks?
No.
No. Thank you very much. Answer is B. Thank you, Frederick. And, oh yes, this must be the last one. Which skills are typically needed on a Scrum development team? This is a very good question. Which skills are typically needed on a Scrum development team? Now, I have spoken about so many today. Guys, I'm going to help you out here because of time. Yeah, I'm just conscious. It is all of the above.
All of the above.
All of them. Coding, testing, software design, business domain knowledge and requirement analysis, user interface, your BAs. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Bobby. After I had to give me the answer, thank you very much. Don't worry. All right. I'll accept it. Yeah, all of them. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Let me see how many questions are left.
We've just seen all the answers.
Exactly.
I'm looking at how long I'm still gonna be here for. Sorry. Okay.
The next one is A. The answer that is B.
What? We have some we have some recorders in the house. Recorders. All right.
Next one is A. Next one is B.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what? Let's talk through it then. In that case, yeah. So during the sprint execution, when a new sprint task added, as soon as possible after they've been identified, that is correct.
E.
A.
Remember we
A.
spoke about that. Yeah, we spoke about that earlier. You know.
Mhm.
Okay, let's look at this one. What is the time box for daily Scrum? I repeated this so many times.
B.
It's B. Thank you very much, guys. Correct. When is sprint backlog created? When is sprint backlog created? When is it created?
When the refinement meeting.
Let's get the answers coming through because this is a very good one.
B.
B.
At the end of the last sprint.
All B's, you know. Sounds like my favorite letter.
Yeah, B is B. I thought it was much B. B.
That's right, that is correct. Thank you, Gracious. Thank you, Yeti. Thank you, everybody. What is the recommended size of a Scrum team? All right, I didn't talk about this one. So I'll tell you guys the answer. It's
It's
usually
D.
Sorry?
A. A.
7.
That's
7.
correct.
D.
A. That is correct.
A.
Yeah, B is close, but it's actually A. It's 7 plus or minus 2. That's because you don't want the team to be too big, not too small. If not, they'll be very difficult to manage. And I believe, oh my gosh, another one. All right. Which technique is the least effective way to encourage collaboration within the Scrum development team and product owner? Which is the least effective way? So let's look at them.
C.
C.
D.
So we have
Oh, no,
some,
so D.
we have some
D,
C
definitely.
and D. So it's between C and D, yeah?
D is D.
Okay, D. No, it's a B.
B.
Yeah.
How can it be B? Act as a go-between for them.
Guys, let me come back to this one because I must have made a typo there. That's not the correct answer. The correct answer is
Ah,
apologies. No, that's a typo. It is D. Well done, everybody. Apologies, that's a typo.
of course now.
Yes, you guys have become masters already. You know. Well done. No, well done. I'm really impressed with your answers. To be honest, I think all of you should be as well. Does Scrum have rules or just guidelines?
I'll say guidelines.
It's got a manifesto, so it would be a guideline.
Guidelines, yes. So we
Guidelines, yeah.
have guidelines as a majority and no.
This is a typo.
It is no. This one is not a typo.
I beg check them properly, not typo.
Yes, Scrum has rules, and if you check Ken Squabbers, sorry, I keep struggling with that name. Ken Squabbers. Yes, Squabber. Thank you. You know, you will see where the Scrum rules are in place. Scrum has defined rules. You know, of a Scrum meeting must happen. It must be what? Less. It must not be more than 15 minutes. It must be held daily. You must have a sprint planning meeting. In the sprint planning meeting, you must have all those are rules.
Okay.
How frequently do experienced agile software developers test? Aha.
I would say as soon as the
Every 30
Q&A
days.
person is available. E?
A.
So we have A, we have E, we have D. Okay, the answer is D. The answer is D because every time a code changes, you must test it. Whether it changes 10 times a day, whether it changes 11 times, thank you, Prince. Whether it changes, guys, sorry, can you mute yourselves, please, guys? Guys, somebody's muted. Gracious, the answer is there, don't worry. We're coming to an end, guys, so I'm going to have to mute someone, sorry.
Hey,
Thank you.
hi, Sage.
Hi,
Hi. I disagree with that.
tell me why.
I think it's none of the above because if it's day, every time the code changes, potentially many times per day, What if the code does not change and they still have to develop? You still need to test.
Yes, but if you're developing, that means you're writing code, isn't it? So if you're writing code, then you must test that code.
Okay.
Once you write the code, you test it. If the code changes at any point in time, yeah, you have to. Sorry, I'm gonna have to mute a few people. Sorry if I mute you and I'm trying to find out who the person is. All right, yeah, I found the person. So Bobby, I'll put you back on. Yeah, I hope you understand, right? Because when you're writing code usually in a coding environment. Yeah. So if any part of that code changes, so the changes.
Michael.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My God. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. All right. No worries. No worries. You know. Yeah. So if so you're writing it in a coding environment, yeah. So anytime you add an extra bit of code in there, basically that code has changed. You just adding in an extra bit of code in the coding environment, you've changed the code already. So you must test everything that is in there. That's Agile for you, you know. Agile is all about testing. You will find out here that it's all about, there's a lot of testing, quality assurance, user testing, user research, user feedback, a lot of that. Huge. This week alone, you know, we are testing a particular application that we just built for booking in courses for the council, like adult learning courses. The amount of testing that we have to do is incredible, you know, but I'm not surprised because it's about making sure that the delivered product at the end is and meets requirements. Sorry, and meets requirements and meets user acceptance criteria. Okay, this particular slide, I am going to skip this slide tonight. No, please, guys. Yes, for the benefit of everybody on the call, please, yeah, let's just skip this one for tonight. But that notwithstanding, keep your questions. You know, on the next session that will be coming up, we're going to cover it again in more details. We'll revisit what we've learned, and then we'll go into more details around story points, around velocity, around release cycle, like somebody asked earlier, around, and a bit more details on Kanban boards as well. I'll share some Kanban boards as well and how Kanban boards can be used in a Scrum environment. All right, guys. Look, I know I've gone way over. You know, I gave everybody opportunity to leave, so please don't blame me. Yeah, I just felt like it was important that all of you sort of, benefit from the time that you dedicated tonight. So God bless you all, and remember. I remember what I always say, you know, if I put in 1 hour a day into something that I want to achieve, right? And then somebody else puts in 2 hours a day into the same thing as well, you know, you guys will probably know who would achieve it first. Yeah, so God bless you. All right, take it easy. Have a good week.
Oh, that was great. Thanks, Saj. That was on point. Thanks a lot.
God bless you guys. You guys were very interactive.
Bye.
Nice one.
Bye.
All right, cool.